Armada Book 1 Chapter 13 The Bofengs Part 1. The next day Andrew found himself on his bed in his stateroom. He stood up and saw ships moving about. Olive, what's up? The Norsets are mobilizing to go to another planet called Bofengs to install the plasma cannons and cloaking devices on their ships. You slept for 12 hours, Andrew. The Max have taken over half of the Mort ships and are moving them back to our galaxies to convert them into hop ships. Olive continued. Do they know we are expecting an attack? That would be 3 months from now at least. Andrew dressed up and walked into the bridge. He saw Borin, Janan and Tonin with Roger and Gadden. Good morning, guys, what's up? Andrew greeted the group. It's noon. General, Roger said. Is it? That's probably why I am so hungry. Let's all head down to the mess hall and talk there while eating. They all moved to the mess hall and took a large conference-type table to eat. Gantley walked in to join the group. Then Ellie and Eric walked in. They all got their food and started eating. Andrew, we would like to invite you to one of our larger planets called Bofengs to show you the new on-ship plasma cannons and cloaking devices our lead scientists came out with. These scientists are our geniuses that are probably the smartest of the smarts. Our major formulators are in Bofengs and the place can turn out literally thousands of equipment that we set them out to do. You could say the planet is our main manufacturing planet. Operations were very much reduced during the war, but now we are resuming our usual levels. Tonin said. They wanted to put up a celebration reception for you and your party, but we told them you would probably prefer not to. So this will be a simple working walk-through. Ellie will be happier than most of you though. Borin said. While on the subject of celebrations, you probably do not realize it, but the actions of the council, the kneeling and bowing of their heads to the ground, is the greatest honor one can receive from them. The last time they did this was like 30,000 or so years ago, when a major breakthrough on the cloning process was discovered. Back then only the Science Council head and the main leader bowed. This time all of them bowed and all the people followed. So the honor is really great. Janan explained. You're absolutely right to do away with the celebrations. Andrew said. I am really excited. Imagine, this is the apex of manufacturing. Ellie said. Suddenly the 3 Norsets stood up and in walked Binaton. Good afternoon, great leader. Tonin said. Binaton greeted them and Andrew's group. He sat down across the table and, the council has decided that we would create hops to our friends the Bofengs who are 2.8 BLY away. Since the Morts attacked us, we have not had contact with them. We don't know if they were attacked as well or not. We do not want to use the Mort ships at first, but my development council head insisted that it would be the quickest and most practical move. We still have 421 Mort ships around the galaxy to use. Janan said. Ellie added, you probably need only 80 to 100 ships to create a two-way hop ship network to those galaxies. The only problem is that the Mort ships are too slow. You probably would bring the last Mort ship near the target galaxy in 4 or 5 months if you use their own power. We can tow them to position. This way they can be in place in 15 to 18 days. And we can be in the area ourselves. Gantley said. Great idea, Gantley. Andrew said. He remembered his blunder because he did not know that his ship can tow other ships. And the way the Max work, they clear the ships like crazy and in 10 days the Mort ship will be empty like a cargo ship and in another 2 days the TPs are installed. Roger noted. We only need to wait for the ships we sent out to complete the last few hops from our galaxy to this galaxy. Eric said. I will have the Max start working on at least 100 of the largest Mort ships. Gadden said. This is how you work? Binaton asked. Work, this is not work, this is lunch. Gantley said. Everybody laughed. See that, an Inky with a sense of humor. Andrew said. It's like everybody knows exactly what to do. Binaton said. It's a long story but we do work well together. Ellie said. They make me look smarter too. Andrew said. Everybody laughed again. We cover each other's back as in every battle. We make one smarter to cover, Roger said. He stopped. Andrew laughed. I would send out 4 scout ships today so we can have a lay of the land. Eric said. Yes, you do that. Have them take some Norsets with them. Andrew said. Your ships are really fast and our scientists are impressed. Would you leave one ship behind when we reach Bofengs so our top scientists can study them? Tonin said. We would be honored. Gantley said. See that, I could never answer like that. I would say, sure, no problemo, Andrew quipped. They laughed again. I noticed the metals on your ships are way stronger than what we have. Ellie said. Ask no more, the information will be given to you and your ship. We will also provide the formulators to create those metals. You will see them in your visit today. Binaton said. How stronger? Andrew asked. He looked at Ellie. Like 5,000 times stronger, sir. Wow, that is strong. Roger said. That's why in battle, a toe-to-toe firing will enable us to destroy 3 Mort ships before they can destroy one of ours. And our shields are better than theirs, of course. Tonin said. Binaton, why don't you get some food? There are a lot of different ice cream at the counter. Andrew suggested. Andrew, you read my mind. Janan stood up to get a cup of ice cream for their leader. We can start a barter trade with your planets through the hops. I want to get brandy and ice cream. Binaton said. Remember what I told you, ice cream and brandy started intergalactic trade among the 3 races. It started the idea for the hops. Andrew said. I will contact the Trade Council head to make this happen, great leader. Tonin said. In a few minutes they were done eating and Olive beamed them to a large facility in the planet Bessenatina. This is our top scientist, Gotanen, Binaton said. Gotanen greeted the group by bowing his head. I am honored to receive you, great leader. We are honored to receive our friends from 3 galaxies. He and his people started to kneel and Binaton stopped him. The other scientists stopped as well. Shall we proceed with your tour then? Gotanen asked. Gotanen showed them around and showed them into a large hole on the ground where several formulators stand, 400 feet high in 2 rows. These are the largest formulators we have and we can turn out completed machine from these. He opened a formulator, that's an on-ship plasma cannon floating out from the formulator which is then teleported out onto a warehouse farther out of the facility. Gotanen explained. How many cannons can you produce in a day? Ellie asked. We have not had a continuous run, but I would say at least 300 a day of continuous run on one formulator. The funny thing is that when your ships started cleaning up the mess, my group realized that we can turn the garbage into these cannons, so we got all the garbage your ships cleaned out. In fact, you set a great example for our scientists that we will copy your cleanup systems and we would be doing it around the galaxies. Gotanen said. There is always wealth in garbage. Andrew said. Well said, Andrew. Binaton said. The group moved to another formulator and Gotanen showed them the cloaking devices they created for their ships. Gotanen explained, we realized these cloaking devices are a work of art. But we added a few brush strokes and the result is that the cloaked ships are less detectable even by our scanners. The cloaked personnel are more lightweight, that objects can pass through you without much effort if the object is small as a hand. These are portable cloaking devices? Ellie asked. Gotanen nodded, yes, but they can cloak a ship as big as Andrew's. How many of these do you have? Andrew asked. Right now we only have 110. But we can manufacture 200 of these in a day using this one industrial formulator. Gotanen said. I am impressed. Ellie said. We are more impressed than you are, Ellie. The TP technology is a work of genius, and to think that this has been around for almost 500,000 years is unbelievable. Gotanen said. Binaton added, not to mention your impressive military expertise in using them. Gotanen continued, we have refurbished several dozen large industrial formulators that you can bring back to your galaxies so you can study and use. If you need some more, we would have to manufacture them for you. This planet's main role is to create formulators for our people to use. Binaton quipped, in exchange for ice cream and brandy. Lots of it. Everybody laughed. Boren must have briefed you on negotiation techniques to use on us. Andrew said. Yes, he did. Binaton said, and they all laughed. We also have extremely large data systems that your ships can integrate and use. I understand the volume of information is so large your ships cannot handle them. Gotanen said. Have you been talking to Olive? Andrew asked. Yes, in fact she appeared before us and told us of the problem. The way she talked was like you, Andrew. Light and funny. Gotanen said. Our boss is a clown. But he is also a prophet. Ellie said. Exactly what I thought. Gotanen said. Enough of this prophet and clown. What else do you have? Andrew asked. The group laughed quietly this time. See, I almost predicted that comment. Anyway, the last item on our tour is the time warp. Again, a genius of a technology. We have just begun thinking about it and you have been using it for as long as you had the TPs. Anyway, we saw you clean up using this technology and we realized we can integrate a transport film right behind the warp wall, so when you turn the warp wall off, the items are transported to storage. Gotanen said. I like that. Cleaning up is always a chore. When I was starting my officer training they made me clean up in space for months. Gantley said. Maybe you did something wrong and that's your punishment. Andrew said. Gantley laughed. It was actually Roden's fault, but I took the hit. That's the last on the tour. You can have your cloaking devices tomorrow. Gotanen said. Can you design something that will make a time warp box? Say to hold something in time? Ellie asked. Already on that one. We will be finished in 3 days. We will also allow you to make your own boxes of any size and dimension you like. Godenin said. May I invite you and your group to my ship for a tour? It would be an honor for me and the scientists if you accept. Godenin nodded. I would be honored. My staff would be honored. The next several days were a blur for Andrew and the Armada. They toured the planets and everywhere they went the Norset celebrated, but do so less than they would have since Andrew requested that celebrations be lowered in intensity. When the clones started arriving, the celebrations started again with the reintegrated bodies being the center of their celebrations. They also started to celebrate using beer, brandy, whiskey and ice cream, which are now regularly going through the TPs thanks to Maria. Maria told Andrew and Gantley that Roden, Ambassador Gilkin and some MAC council members and President Albert Baker and his people would be coming in 2 days. The council made preparations for the visiting dignitaries. The TP traffic has increased with the clones, movement of Macs and Inkeys and humans back and forth the Norset galaxies. The security ships from Roden and Allen trailed the hop line, so they functioned as backup for the hops. So they decided to create another dual hop line. After 2 days, the capital planet of Senenaltina has finished preparations to meet the dignitaries from different species. The council prepared a statement of trust and friendship that the 3 leaders signed, and after the usual speeches, 2 days of celebration started. Vicky, Tim and Elaine, Julia and Danny also arrived before the dignitaries arrived. Andrew was happy Vicky came, and they stayed in Andrew's ship most of the time except for the speeches and signing ceremonies. Ellie stayed close to her parents. Maria stayed close to Roden while Gadden stayed close to Gilkin. The dignitaries were toured around their manufacturing facilities in Bessenatina. Vicky noted, I like your quarters, Andrew. It's like a house. I only stay here to sleep. Most of the time I'm at the bridge looking at floating monitors and reading. How's the baby doing? He's really getting active. So you know he's a he? Brad showed me. Aren't you happy? I would be happy either way. You know, you have bridged the gaps between 4 races in galaxies billions of light years away. I am so proud of you. It was not my intention. It was partly luck and part because I have a great team. I would be just as happy in any case because I have you. Olive appeared. Excuse me, Andrew, Vicky, this whole afternoon you both said a few sentences. Most of the time you hold hand and keep quiet, sometimes you just look at each other and sometimes you smile at each other. Is there anything wrong that I can help you with? Do you need anything or want to show anything to each other? I can help. Vicky laughed. No, Olive, we're just fine. We were like this back in high school. She just sat there with Andrew holding her hand and kept quiet. They were watching the planets and ships below. Olive, can you please beam the wines on the tray over here to this side table? Get some wine glasses as well. Andrew poured wine for him and Vicky and they sipped and held it. They kept quiet and Olive left. It was almost evening when Olive asked Andrew if Godenin can see Vicky. Andrew agreed to see him at the reception hall. Olive repeated that Godenin wants to meet Vicky. When Andrew and Vicky walked into the reception hall, they saw Godenin sitting by the fountain. Good evening, Andrew, Vicky. Excuse me, Andrew, I would like to give Vicky a gift. Your president told me that you are head of science and research for your planet, so we, my staff and I, wanted to give you this. May I offer you something, ice cream perhaps? Vicky asked. Yes, ice cream, chocolate please. Olive beamed an entire container of chocolate ice cream, some cups and spoons. What is it? Vicky asked. She held a see-through cube with tiny multicolored lights and 2 black frames at the top and bottom. It's a drop of water in its purest particle form. These 2 black ends continuously turn it back into its smallest, most basic particles, while the particles continuously attempt to turn back to water atoms. In the process they also provide energy to enable the particles to emit tiny bits of light. So you visited us at dusk so we can see the light? Andrew said. Precisely, you cannot see the light in the day. This is amazing. We started one like this 50 years ago and it covered several miles underground beneath several countries. And that facility could not contain the particles. Vicky said. Godenin explained, this reminds us how the simplest matter is so complex. Water is the hardest to turn to this. And this will continuously occur forever or as long as the power on this 2 ends last. It also reminds us that we may attempt to live forever in clones, but there is a form that will live forever by its very nature. And what is that? Andrew asked. Our soul. Godenin said. Did you mean consciousness? Andrew asked again. Soul as in God's soul, consciousness is one of the physical manifestations of the soul. The consciousness may be lost but the soul goes to God in heaven. I could never imagine a species like yours that can last forever in clones believe in God. So this science experiment is actually an idol to remind you about God? Vicky asked. Yes, Precisely because we attempt to last forever that we believe in a higher being that does not attempt to last forever because it is. Norsets believe that God created the universe and our pursuit of knowledge and information is our way of understanding God and His creation, an endless pursuit if you ask me, like an endless prayer. In the end we believe we would end up in heaven where we continue our pursuits. And why do you think there is heaven? Andrew asked. The God we believe in is a good and kind God. So it follows a good and kind God will be good and kind to the souls that go to Him, ergo the souls would receive this good and kindness as heaven. Our society is an advanced one, a society that is good and kind to each of us. How can you imagine God to be less than kind or good to us? Heaven then must be much more than what we have now, unimaginably more. Godenon explained. We don't see you pray and you don't have churches. Vicky said. The longer you live in His creation, the more God is present in you as you learn about Him or you are conscious of Him because it's like living with Him for the longest time. Godenon said. May I ask how old are you? Vicky asked. I'm 3,219 of your Earth years old. You could say I am way below our average age. You are the leader of the top scientists, you must be old and wise and the smartest. Do you feel you are the smartest scientist being head of science and research for your species, Vicky? No, absolutely not. Godenon, I would like to ask a favor, if I may. For you, Vicky, anything. You know that I will bear this child in a few months and I am afraid Andrew may not see the child until after many days or even months. Is there a way for us to communicate across billions of light years so he can see his baby boy? Godenon thought for a moment and said, yes, in fact, with the hop network you have we can set up our send and receive converter posts in each hop so that it continuously transmits data across the network of hops. So you could be in this planet and you can contact or see or show via hologram something to Roden in the Inky galaxy more than 6 BLY away. You see our scanners can cover up to 600 MLY, so that would be the limit of our signal, but with the converters at short distances, the data stream would be wider. Olive, can you tell Roden, Gantley, the GX1 team, Tonin and Gilkin to beam over here? What's wrong, Andrew? Vicky asked. Vicky, you just started the need and Godenon provided a solution to intergalactic data communications. In the next few minutes GX1 and the others started beaming in. Vicky offered them ice cream and some fruits. I like this ship. This hall is very well appointed so far from dreary labs. Godenon said. This ship was a gift from the Inkies. Andrew said. So what's is so important, Andrew? Vicky, how's the baby coming? When are you going to give birth? Roden asked. Precisely, Roden. Andrew said. Roden pointed at Andrew. Don't try to make me look smart, Andrew. The group laughed. Precisely because of the baby that Vicky wanted me to be there when it's born and not later. But if I am 6 BLY away, I could never be there on time. Andrew looked at Godenon. The others looked at Godenon as well. Vicky asked me if there is a way to do this. And I realized there is. Our scanners cover more than 600 MLY and it's a very strong communications device. Now if we could set up these send and receive converter posts in each of the hops, a continuous and wide spectrum wave stream may be transmitted across the network. You see, if the distance is made shorter, like say 80 MLY, the throughput would be bigger. We can even send holographic images across 6 BLY or even more as the network grows. This is the missing link to link the galaxies together. Thanks, Vicky. Ellie said. Vicky smiled. Thanks to Godenon here. I almost thought Andrew thought about this. Roden said. I thought about telling all of you. Andrew said. They looked at each other. Because you are the participants that will make this happen. Andrew added. Sir, so we are going to set up these posts across billions of light years on the HOP network just so you can see your baby on time? Roger asked. Yes. Roden nodded. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that as well. Gantley said. Godenon noted, just so you know, I can have our formulators produce these posts by the thousands before you leave. We can put 20 posts per hop point or even twice this number, and this will ensure the network will never be clogged. But if they were, it would be easy to expand. Olive beamed a lot of food on a table across the water fountain. Let's all eat to that. Andrew said. They started to get the food and sat down at the table at the middle of the hall. Gadden explained, the Norsets have cleared all the Mort ships of everything except those things we need to convert them into hop ships. They have started to put the new engines and cloaking devices. The Max will install the TPs as soon as the Norsets finish cutting up the space. You can tell the Norsets to get the converters from me and install them beside the TPs starting tomorrow. I will have my team start building the converters today. We will be able to have hundreds by tomorrow. Godenon said. What about the Max that left with more than 400 ships a few days ago? Eric asked. The Norsets can send them through the hops after we finish up with those we have here. Godenon added. All the Norset ships are being outfitted with the plasma cannons, new cloaking devices and your engines. They would be done in a few days. As for your ships, the cloaking improvements would be an upgrade to your existing devices, so it will not even take a few days. We can do that on our way to the Bofengs. Tonen said. When are we leaving for the Bofeng galaxy? Roger asked. With all this activity, maybe after 2 weeks. Ellie said. Maybe I can send halfway ships to send any communications the scouts I sent out earlier will be sending back. Eric said. Good idea. The converters have a range of 600 mly. If you space 500 mly each, you would need 6 ships to get the communication from your scout ships to here. You would need Norsets to set up and operate these scanner communicators. Godenon said. Just make sure their cloaks are upgraded. We don't want the enemy to see them. Andrew added. Andrew, I told Binatton how fortunate we are that they freely share their technology to us. And these are very useful technologies. Now I realize they should have access to all our technologies so they can improve them. Roden said. If we don't share it with them, they take it anyway. They are like the Max, natural spies, but the Norsets spy on knowledge and technology. This is where they are good at. Andrew quipped. We love improving technologies. Meeting all of you now greatly improves our capabilities. Godenon said. Why is that? Roden asked. Because things we could not imagine in almost all areas of existence are suddenly here. Remember, technology is limited by one's imagination. If we cannot imagine it, then we cannot improve something towards something we cannot imagine. I like the way you can just build things. Can I have my scientists learn how to build your formulators? Roden asked. We would be honored to transfer what we know in anything your scientists like. We will also give you several large industrial formulators for your home scientists to use. Godenon said. You told me that when you were on my ship. Ellie said. Our people will be forever grateful, Godenon. Roden said. Roden, we do these things all the time. This is what we do. Andrew said. Andrew, I am really just grateful to them, so I tell them so. And yes, thanking is something we also do all the time. Thanking is what we do. Roden explained. Andrew, you and Roden must be really good friends the way you talk to each other. You talk as if you are brothers. Godenon said. They are like brothers, long-lost brothers who argue and agree on almost anything. Sometimes they talk of things that affect galaxies over ice cream like they are no big deal. Vicky said. It still amazes me that in this table are 4 species from 4 galaxies talking about a baby and intergalactic communications over ice cream and food. Godenon said. This is the future of existence. Gantley said. Well said, my friend. Roden said. Can you tell us about the Bofengs? What are they like? Vicky asked and looked at Tonen. They are our closest friends in the galaxies. With the Mort attacks, communications suddenly stopped and we believe they were also invaded. Mort ships ply the space between our worlds, so we could not send anything to them or they to us. Now it's different. Now I cannot imagine even 100 Mort ships being able to destroy one Norset ship. Godenon added, the Bofeng species is like a cross between an underwater creature you call a fish and a land creature you call a horse. Their faces have wide lips, bulging eyes, hair that look like fins on their side, but their skin is like that of a horse with hairs on their shoulders and end of their arms. They have 3 fingers and 1 other finger that they use to connect to a lot of their devices. Our scientists are very close to their scientists. I became good friends with one of them. Tonen continued, they are a very peaceful race, not as emotional as the Norsets but very kind and absolutely unaggressive. While Norsets have armies and some degree of armaments, the Bofengs have never had a weapon. So they are easy prey to the very aggressive Morts. I guess we should try to leave earlier than we intend to. Andrew noted. After the food, Olive beamed some brandy, wines and beer. And as usual, the group talked their heads off for hours. Ellie and Vicky excused themselves. Ellie went to her parents while Vicky turned in early to have a good rest. She wanted to leave the next day with the president's group.